good morning and warm welcome to all joining us today for the autumn update from GroupBC. This is our user group update, building on from a user forum that we ran last week. And in terms of speakers, I've ordered them by way of greatness. So my name is Stuart Bell, Sales and Marketing Director. We've got several of my colleagues in attendance this morning as well. So Steve Crompton, Chief Product Officer, Paul Horton, who sits alongside and in support with Steve in the product team. Paul Rose, business analyst, representing our professional services team, and many of you will know Paul Gray as our head of key accounts, who'll be talking about how do you take action on some of the really good things that we're sharing with you today. So by way of an agenda, I'll be kicking off this morning with a corporate update. It's been a really exciting time for us over the past year. Actually, this week marks the end of our financial year, so I'll give an update corporately on everything that is GroupBC, and before handing over to Steve and Paul in relation to where the product's going from a roadmap perspective, and then we're excited to be talking about some new product launch as well, which we pre-called at the recent Digital Construction Week for those that were in attendance. Paul Rose will then talk about professional services and some of the range of services that we can offer, both from a professional and technical professional perspective. And then Paul will, as I say, talk about how do we take action with the things that we're sharing. So in terms of company update, when we speak with new clients or prospective clients, these are the sorts of things that we talk about. That we're an industry experienced team that are very passionate about technology, and we blend that with lots of industry experience. And we've been working hard for over 2 decades now, focused on the development of this thing that's now labelled a common data environment, but probably at launch we would be talking about a knowledge management platform, a collaboration tool, an extranet, an electronic document management system. It's carried all of those labels all the time, but we sit centrally in the conversation around common data environment. And we're 20 years old this year, so it's been a really packed year with lots and lots of activity taking place. We're very proud when we look back over our shoulder about the input that we've had into some of the industry standards representation, so the forerunner to the 2016 Level 2 mandate. We're actively involved with the UK BIM Alliance, and we're now talking about digital twin as well. And to mark our 20th anniversary, we've been involved in quite a number of charitable activities throughout the year. So we've raced and flipped pancakes. We've challenged the construction industry on dragon boats. We've swum. We've run. We've cycled. We've baked, and we've made things, all for a variety of different charities around that many of our staff and many of our clients are passionate to support. So in terms of what we do, we provide a platform, as you know, that's very much centered around the whole life cycle of asset information management, and our clients are representative of that, everything from design professionals all the way through to major asset owning clients. And I think it's that's given us a unique perspective, and as the industry moves at a pace on its journey of digital transformation, as we start embracing and a more open about conversation of digital twin, we're in a unique position in that we've had for many years now a very strong foot in both the camps of capital delivery and operational running of assets as well. But we're all about how do we support the collaboration, how do we ensure that there's a single source of truth. So a lot of the things that we'll talk in terms of roadmap, the user forum and special interest groups that we've been holding throughout the year, very much focused on those. And when we talk about product roadmap and when we talk about new product launch, all of those things are informed by our clients. And whilst this is a bit of a busy slide, it puts and gives a little bit of a nod really to the strength of the BC platform in terms of how it supports both project and asset information management. And increasingly, we're seeing owner operators and asset owners be a bit more prescriptive in terms of how they procure information from the supply chain. And equally, we're seeing the supply chain actually in a more enabled position to service those clients, probably more without doing an injustice to our asset owning clients. There are some fantastic skill sets in the supply chain who for many years have been working in a very structured way, conforming to naming standards, not always BIM standards. Some of those are very specific to the sectors that they work in, and not only have they been delivering those standards internally themselves, but also procuring information from their subcontract and a manufacturer supply chain as well. So the other thing just to call out on that slide really is that contract line. So we recognise there's a point of handover, and that one area that we're constantly looking at is usability and also friction points in the information flow across a project or across the asset life cycle. And it's those are the sort of things, as I say, that do inform us. We've been doing a lot of work this year, strengthening the ISO 27001 accreditation that we've had. The work that we're doing with many clients around critical national infrastructure in defence, central government. We've started to see a much stronger emphasis from clients, and in turn clients putting that pressure into their supply chain for adherence to some strict cyber compliance needs as well. So we ourselves work with the cyber team at PA Consulting, looking at all aspects of how we operate, looking at the application in order that we can put our best foot forward. Most recently, in fact, this week, we were awarded Cyber Essentials Plus, building upon the Cyber Essentials program that we've had as well. A lot of the platform cyber capabilities are defined on our G Cloud, on the government digital marketplace. So that's appropriate for anyone in government, either central or local, but increasingly also to a number of almost quasi-government or education establishments as well. So most recently, at University of Birmingham procured the BC CDE through G Cloud, just on the understanding that it's pre-vetted and they've got a reference point that they can look back on. If you were getting questions raised either at pre-contract stage or ongoing, we're seeing clients now almost through their supplier vetting procedures, re-looking at cyber. There's quite a number of things that we're able to do, even on individual customer instances. So if there's anything specifically that you want in terms of security wrap around your CDE, intrusion detection, anti-DDoS, those sorts of things, they're all services that we're now able to offer because they're part of our extended data center offering. So there's quite a few new team members that have joined the business. So without going through all of them, I've highlighted some stars in areas of the business. The largest area, just in the bottom left-hand corner there, being in the R&D or development area, and I think that really proves, as a business, the emphasis that we're putting on product development. So you may be interfacing with some new people in product, in consulting and delivery, in our marketing team if you come along to events, etc. And also we're very pleased to welcome just this week a couple of new people into our support function as well. So a very warm welcome to everyone on board who's attending the webinar today. We're aware that it's not only our customers, old and new, but also some collaborators who are working on our customer CDEs that are joining us today. So a very warm welcome to you all. And we're very proud that over the past 20 years that we've maintained some really strong and long and loyal relationships with with a number of clients. In fact, just at the end of last year, nationwide, he started with us back in the very late 90s, reconverged back on the standard platform, and have really supported the development of some aspects of the system around program management. So really exciting news for us. Over on the right hand side, you can see that we've had a busy year, kicking off with a couple of major aviation clients at Heathrow Airport and Dubai Airport, working with HS2 directly as part of their virtual railway project, but also through their supply chain as well, in terms of two of the major joint ventures, Align JV and BBV. Working with Sir Robert McAlpine, so fantastic that from a tier one contractor perspective, having reviewed their incumbent supplier and also all other available contractor CDEs that are available to tier ones, they were really welcomed and were really appreciative of how BC has moved on in the past few years since they'd last reviewed. British Land in terms of major developer, so working on the Canada Water project. That's a really substantial project. A couple of education establishments, the University of Birmingham and the University of Hong Kong, and then part of Highways England supply chain on the regional infrastructure project. So working with Highways England already, really pleased to secure and support Osborne, who are working with us as well. McNear as a contractor that's come into the UK, working for a specific retailer wanting ISO 19650, and we've been working very hard as a business on a standard ISO 19650 BC projects configuration, and that continues to be one of the areas that we focus a lot of attention on. One of the most recent additions to our staff is an information manager from industry who's worked very closely with the standard, has been inputting into that. And then we're pleased to reunite with some prior or old estates contacts at Henry Riley, who are managing a major development with EasyJet, and also with some information management teams from independent oil and gas, that again, just building on some of the other energy areas that we work on. Fantastic to see those clients come on board. So welcome all. And again, they're highlighted there. I've shown this slide also just to emphasise really the areas that we work in, broadly speaking, are the built environment, but clearly there are nuances within individual sectors that we work in as well. So it might be a drive for quantum and a quick turnaround of refurb programs in retail, or it might be very compliance driven if we're sat in water utilities, for instance. But all of that capability then drives through the core product. The past 18 months, we've secured the 3H of UK infrastructure, so Highways England, HS2, and Heathrow. I think the official number is 60 billion when I originally wrote the slide, but we know that those numbers are subject to change. So no offence intended there. It's our nod at a wry joke around the valuation of some of these projects. So where next for GroupBC? Well, we very much see our focus on if we think about the traditional BIM wedge, very much focused in on that shared published archive around the CapEx process, giving tier one contractor and the supply chain a project information tool, but also giving clients that same capability as well to in-source data and to be able to stand up an environment that their supply chains can competently and confidently work within. And then we continue in the asset in use phase as well to put lots of energy in support of some of the major asset owner clients that we've got that are really driving everything digital right down to granular data level of definition in terms of their requirements and their expectation of what they want the platform to support, to put them in an empowered position. And just across the bottom, we recognise that in a project world, we tend to be focused very much in terms of maybe a 1 to 3 year time horizon, but now we're talking decades, and the need to both archive and access information for many years to come. Working with Heathrow, the original airport built in '46. We'll be in the process of cataloguing and transferring and giving a digital representation of the business as usual estate into BC, as well as supporting the expansion program, or runway 3, that's coming through. We don't do all of that alone, so we recognise actually there's increasingly clients look out to industry for specific support and advice. Either when they're light internally in terms of the construction personnel that they've got. So we've had a relationship with Mark Bew and his consultancy PCSG for many years, and PCSG are a value-added reseller in that they take the BC platform, and you may see GeoConnect Plus in industry. So at HS2, for instance, the virtual railway is built on BC, or branded as the GeoConnect product, and it's fantastic. The same with HDR and Consenta Consulting. These consultancies are offering that strategic level advice, as well as very much that hands-on project information management or asset information management support, alongside the incumbent team for clients as well. Where else are we heading? So we're being influenced by the global agenda, notably the move earlier this year to ISO 19650. We have ensured, in terms of our former PAS 1192 support, that we've focused our standard and available template or configuration around the specifics of 19650, and just that move to an international standard, we've seen an uptick from a marketing perspective in a lot more inbound inquiries from Australia, from Malaysia, Singapore, Hong Kong, North America, interestingly, who haven't always been renowned for grasping standards, are really taking a look across the pond at us to really understand what we as a vendor, but what UK Construction PLC, who are the world leader at documenting and writing standards, how we're implementing those as well. And we're very firmly in the digital debate. So we've had a very active year in support of quite a number of different activities, around tables, supporting events, several speaker slots, both ourselves and many of our clients. So thank you if you have provided your insight into the practical implementation and how BC is supporting you in the delivery of your projects or running of your assets. Thank you very much indeed. And just the final thing from me is, do keep track of our events page, and you'll see a constant run of webinars. Increasingly we're using. Not only do we run those live, we try and get clients onto those to share their advice and support and their insight to how they're working, how they've addressed not only the technical challenge, but the people and systems and process challenge as well. So I'll wrap up there and pass over to my colleague Steve Crompton.
So thank you, Stuart, and I'd also just like to echo my thanks to you all for joining us today. We've got an extremely busy schedule, so without further ado, we have been working very hard on product, and we're very excited today to tell you about two things, one of which is our imminent release, which is our BC 7.3 release, but we always like to keep ourselves busy, so we've also been working on what's going to follow after that, and in fact we have some very lucky early adopters who have been using some of the functionality that we'll be delighted to bring to you soon. So I can talk about not just proposed software, but what is actually definitely on its way. Just to really remind you here, product ultimately is about defining what it is we're going to do and why, and we are really driven as a business by, as Stuart says, this whole idea of lifecycle information management. But let's just be clear what we mean by that information. This is about very much this connected trio of spatially connected data and documentation, structured data and unstructured data. But really on the left, I think, is the most important thing, and is really what's central to that life cycle, which is ultimately this data is there to be used to make decisions, and in order for it to be useful for those decisions, it really needs to follow the criteria we have here. So it needs to be current, but as well as being current, it of course needs to actually be trusted. There's no point having current data if it was produced by someone who was inappropriate for that. And really one of our big pushes that we've had, and my colleague Paul Horton has been really instrumental to this, is around the usability of the system. If people can't use it, if people aren't delighted by what they have, then ultimately adoption is going to be low, and we're not going to deliver what we want to achieve here. And once you have that collection, then of course this isn't just about being able to produce great data in projects and then have it go away to die. Where we've been really successful is providing this absolute round tripping, so that we can have data to be able to be maintained through proper governance and so on through its life cycle. So I can always be assured of being able to make those decisions. And Stuart had this slide before, but I think it's really worth emphasising here. And this is not just about one single system. Although the data is a source of truth, ultimately this data is itself spread across the life cycle as it goes through connected systems, if you will. It's the data which is common, not necessarily the environment. We recognize this absolutely up front, where there are both supplier CDs and there are client CDs, and of course there are work in progress, and we've done a lot of work to try and join that up. But really these four things across the bottom are what focus us in terms of product, and that's about being able to communicate out what it is that as a client that we want, or as a contractor that we want our supply chain to deliver, to be able to then provide easy mechanism for capturing that, and then to be able to ensure through validation or computation that I have the quality information, and then I can not only use that data itself to answer questions, but I can also of course connect it through to other systems, particularly in operations. So with that in mind, hopefully that now puts a frame around what we're delivering here. And really one of the things that people will notice when they first log into BC 7.3 is we've set out to really delight you. It is about being able to have something that's visually appealing, but also at the same time the common message that we have here is also around ease of access to the workflows that I wish to carry out. So we've really listened to our customers, we've brought forward those things which are most used, and not least of which is being able to bring search to the fore. So here I'm carrying out a search, and immediately we suggest to the user what they might want to gain access to. But if that isn't the case, of course they have access to the advanced search as well. Now, one of the other themes that you will notice around this is to create a framework which ultimately customers, as they have done for the last 2 decades, will choose to make their own. So while we have this default advanced search here, some customers have already decided to make this specifically relevant to their own projects and or operational usage. In similar ways, people have for a long time now had the notion of being able to have links and favorites to guide the user through to areas of the system, and there's no exception here. But now there's a firm place for those that's always present within the interface, both within the desktop and within the mobile interface. And again, we provide out of the box what we think are going to be those common links which are required, but this is also equally something which can be very easily made personalized to yourself. And in fact, personalization is a big thing of this, and as much as possible, we want to make that personalization something you yourselves can do. So that homepage that we saw there with that wonderful image there, you're not limited to just having what GroupBC think is great. That is something which you can just go in as an administrator, as what's now a new customer administrator, and indeed edit the image, just like you could previously edit the logo. So you can see that suddenly becomes something which is immediately relevant to your organization. And the other thing, coming to accessibility and being able to get access to information, it's all about how we can quickly get to what we want to get to. And so the real big significant change that everyone will notice as far as the UX is concerned is around what we're calling the sidebar. This will be a familiar concept to most, but we've brought forward some common elements that already existed within the system into this sidebar, such as, for example, the hamburger, which provides you with simple, easy classified navigation, categorized navigation to things. But importantly, we've also now brought filtering into this. So this not only cleans up our interface in terms of the flow of the page, and not having people therefore accidentally click on something which is currently still being rendered, but more importantly, it allows us now finally to support what our customers have long asked us for, which is full filtering of collections within the system. So those of you who are existing users of BC will see that not only am I able to search via the simple system metadata and other things which are exposed in columns, but I've also got access to my more comprehensive filtering, where I'm filtering by areas which are not necessarily visible to me, fields which are not necessarily visible. And importantly, this is not just about being able to do this within the desktop. This is also about being able to do this within our responsive mobile interface. So I can now, from my mobile device, have the best possible chance of quickly finding the information that I want to through that capability. And we've also done a lot to let people know that this activity is going on. So you can see here that I'm already filtered. I'm in a collection, and I've filtered by something. If I want to see what it is, I can click on there, and I can see that I'm filtering. I'm showing the latest versions and only documents and placeholders. And similarly, what we've done is we've brought sort very visibly into the mix there as well. But you can see here I have the ability, as I'm clicking on volume, to also filter by that volume column, and when I do so, I can then pick from what I have. So it's all very, very connected and intuitive, and we're quite delighted by what's been delivered there. As well as having those big major things around the home, around self-serve and so on, and we're constantly looking to improve the user interface, the Quartz responsive mobile interface based on customer feedback. And some things which we've had for a long time in our more advanced interface, we finally, I'm pleased to say, been able to bring into the product, not least of which I would call out is rendition support here, where we can not only have a PDF that might be handed over for contractual purposes, but have as a rendition the associated model files that go with that. And also, now that the capability is easily there and people are more and more using BC on tablets, iPads and so on, being able to have a full screen drag and drop has become something which is has been received very, very well. So here we can see renditions in action, all of the functionality that anyone who's used it would be used to now being made available through the interface, including when available the bulk upload of renditions with their associated primary and secondary files. And as you can see here, although we are maintaining an icon to call people out to be able to do that drag and drop, ultimately you can just upload them the moment that they go into the page. The other thing which has driven this release, which everyone will know about, is around ensuring compliance with GDPR. And we've taken advantage through this to completely refresh our registration process, bring it up to date with the Quartz interface, but also bring in the notion of being able to have baked-in terms and conditions, not just that are our terms and conditions, but again on this self-serve theme, that you can actually have your own editable terms and conditions within there. And the user information is reduced that we capture, and indeed, as part of starters and leavers, when you deactivate users, you now are able to choose to remove all of that information as well. There you can see the self-serve for editing the terms and conditions, and it really is a fully comprehensive approach to ensure that you are able to meet your GDPR requirements. Also, very, very close to our hearts is geospatial data. Some of you will already be aware of our optional geolink module, and very much within this trio of spatial data and connected documentation is this notion of geospatial connection of information. And we now have within the core the ability to upload Google Earth, what are known as KML files, and have those represented within the system and the data from them. And also within that geospatial world, although we have a very close relationship with the Ordnance Survey, and of course those are the maps that come out of the box and cover most of Great Britain, notably when people want to go further afield or indeed have support for the likes of Ireland, being able to provide now OpenStreetMap as an alternative base map is something which people have long requested and we've provided. And we've also looked to provide configuration options there, most notably sometimes while people want to really strongly classify their information, it's not always appropriate within a given server for people who are maybe just running a project to be able to see things around assets and programs and so on. So we've allowed that to be removed, and we've also importantly created the ability for suggested previous revision preferences. So rather than copy through always what was on the previous document, when it comes to things like suitability, that's not always appropriate. So now that can be a configured option for yourself. And last but not least, we really focus on every single release. We try and get more and more out of the system, and that can be said no more than for BC 7.3, where we've made real leaps and bounds when it comes to the performance of the system first and foremost for individual users, but also around the concurrent usage of the system and around the reliability when we are having that high concurrency. And Stuart mentioned our commitment to security. And one of the things we focus really hard on is ensuring that probably one of the most common things which can be exploited, which is something called cross-site scripting, which when you're in a file sharing environment and ultimately people can click on files others have shared, is potentially a window for such, being able to actually close out any possibility there by delivering information from a different domain from where it's actually hosted on the BC server will deliver absolutely what our customers want there. So there's the summary, but as I've got to go on to BC 7.4 and I'm aware of the timing issues we have today, I will continue, but hopefully people can be delighted by what's coming to them very soon. But talking of very soon, in the next few months, we hope also to be bringing to you the following functionality. So we have our 7.4 release, which is currently being used by some lucky partners, and first and foremost, again, focusing on our geospatial credentials, which are becoming more and more the way, not so much that people use to socialize geospatial data, but actually about the interface to information itself. It is, after all, the most natural way to access information. Like all these things, as you add more capability, the interface starts to get cluttered. So what we've done is we've done some great tidying up, just like we have with the rest of Quartz. And you can see here now how, just like with the sidebar, we have a tabbed representation of the navigation panel around maps. So my spaces, broken down by a new geo category field optionally, is now easily separated from getting access to the layer information itself. So we have this clear differential, and we also, to help people, have this notion of a key, so that when I'm in particular looking at different circles on a map like I am here, and some of these are assets, some of these are investments, some of these may be related to your own classifications, locations, for example, you can clearly see what those are. And the observant of you there, looking at the screen, will also notice, if we look at the number 3 with the yellow circle around it, as we get many, many thousands of such spaces which are on a map, it doesn't make sense to load all of those at once. So now information can be clustered. So here we're seeing down in Bournemouth, which is very close to the person opposite me, we have a number of spaces, one of which is a project, two of which are assets, I think, or maybe locations. But in order to understand that, on the right-hand side, we now have a new selector panel, which shows me all of those things that I've chosen and allows me to easily expand and get to all the data. It really is simple and clean and sort of pick up and play. And I think we're all delighted by that. But combined with that, and I think one of the most powerful things, rather than just being able to show the full set of information there on a map, when you have a saved search, and this might be find everything that's associated with a particular program, so all the projects there, being able to render all of those, being able to render a saved search on a map is, again, the absolute most intuitive way to understand what the spread of that program is. And we don't leave it just at the map itself. One of the themes of the 7.4 release is all around portlets, and this is no exception when it comes to maps. And we have this notion of a map portlet now, which is just one of our out-of-box portlets, which goes into the space. And also, I mentioned the suggested search that we've introduced in 7.3, but you'll notice that I have the ability quickly from the suggested search to get to the map itself. Now, with regards to those performance enhancements, the other thing we're able to bring into maps really couldn't have happened without the partnership of the work that we've done in delivering HS2. But that's allowed us to address a number of things which have come through from there and from our customers, in particular being able to natively bring in data from Esri, being able to have secure map layer information come in, and in particular this thing called the related information panel. And I'll just very, very briefly talk through HS2, because some of you will have seen this, some of you won't know. What we've got here is we have a system, a client CDE, who are receiving information from multiple supply chain delivery partners. There are, of course, 3 main sections with 3 main joint ventures, and of course their supply chain. And there are multiple systems that HS2 have that they're asking that supply chain to deliver information into. They include ProjectWise, Enterprise Bridge, ArcGIS I mentioned, and also their asset data system. But we also extend that to Primavera and other such things. So what you have is multiple information in a mixture of formats spread across a number of systems. And when it comes to that ability to easily answer and make decisions about it, the goal here is how can you unify all of that information simply? And this is really where we as a team, working together with these partners that you can see here under the framework of GeoConnect, really tackle this head on and very successfully to drive the user through this simple approach where we start with a map. And I can navigate, as I say, through this very intuitive structure. Here we have the alignment of the railway itself. I can click on an asset, I can get straight into the asset, or indeed I can navigate through a 3-dimensional simulation of the particular section that I'm on. Again, I can click on an asset and I can get straight through into the detailed modeling of that. In this particular case, this is a representative of our soon to be coming to you integration with Autodesk Forge, which really allows people to get straight to that information, no installation required on their computer, able to get to Revit files, Navis, and so on, all through this simple flowing workflow, and down through into the documentation, of course, the asset data, sorry, the my demonstration alone can't do this service, so for some reason that wasn't coming up. There we go. So here we have, hopefully you can all see this. I have been suggested that this is so compelling, it's worth that we should show it to you as well. So I can search here, I can search, for example, I'm going to search for Euston Station. You can see that being picked up as a primary asset, but of course I can drill down through the map instead, which is I think what 99% of the people will do. I can simply click on an outline of this, and then immediately clicking on that outline, that is are reflected and reference to the associated information, all of which is easily available in this portlet view of there. And I can get through to, for example, the model files associated with Houston, and I can get straight through into Forge and I can view it. Now that end-to-end workflow that you see there now within our platform capability of 7.4, albeit configured in a different way for yourselves, is what we're delighted to be able to bring to you very, very soon. Over the 7.4 release and beyond. We've also made some enhancements to courts, not least, again, really helping to draw out people's attention and understanding of where they are. So in this particular case, use of colors, so different colors for different spaces. So if I'm, for example, within an investment or a project, this in this particular case is colored orange. And here you can also see how we've added iconography to the breadcrumb, so that at a glance I can see how locations and assets and projects differ in that respect. And a big theme of the 7.4 release, again on this self-serve theme, is how you can make it appropriate to you and drive the users to the information that's relevant to them. And you can see here this large map portlet here with my 4 smaller portlets here when I'm in the context of the project. And just to show you here, this is behind the scenes how you can pick from a number of layouts and then choose which portlets fit within those layouts. And it really is as straightforward as being able to configure and set that up, both for the projects themselves and also for bringing that into the home. And speaking of the home, we've introduced the concept, if you need to be able to provide system-wide announcements to your users, which ultimately are there until they've read them. There's now a place within the interface, or in 7.4, there's a place within the interface for being able to make those announcements. And building on, I didn't mention this about 7.3, but one of the things 7.3 allows you to do is drag and drop documents, not into a project, but actually directly into the home. And if you are using that ISO naming convention that Stuart quite rightly promoted, then being able to use the information in there to automatically or automagically flow those documents into the appropriate either single project or indeed multiple projects across a program, making it as simple as possible to provide information. But we've now extended that so that in fact users interacting with a project, they don't even need to think about where that information goes. Simply by dragging and dropping into the space, the rules behind will then say which of those particular locations they go into. If they're uploading photos, they might go into a photo collection. If they're uploading project-based information based on a code, they go in there. We've also added search capability, in particular being able to run searches with different criteria in there. But what I'm highlighting here is a new concept of not only being able to find information, but then having found that information, find related information. So for example, find all documents that match a criteria and resolve that to the spaces or the workflows that those documents are in. And that allows us to bring to generally one of the most powerful things about BC was its Save Search. Now the capabilities we have in collections come to Save Searches themselves. Here we can see here I can also search for the number 2, for example, and this will then actually match anything that begins with 0 or 4 zeros or 5 zeros. And when it comes to searching for structured codified ISO information, this just again brings that intuitively to the end user. And again, we're trying to hide away the implementation from the users. So one of the things we've also introduced, like people would know on Windows, is the ability to hide containers, hide information where it's not appropriate for those users to see. For example, where you have administrative membership spaces, so that users simply see what ultimately you want them to see in terms of the actual project navigation. So being able to hide from listings and also hide from paths. And that's just a preference thing. And then probably the biggest ticket value also of 7.4 We have had for a long time, since our introduction of originally our document number generator, but then our placeholder capability within the system, where people can create en masse placeholders, a fantastic functionality, but people have wanted us to extend that so that they can import placeholders from a CSV, and that's exactly what we now bring to 7.4. So here you can see an example where we have our import capability, which of course already still allows you to import file metadata en masse like it did before, but now allows you to import placeholders and validate those placeholders against the naming convention that you have. So where you have a schedule of potentially thousands of existing documents that are going to be provided by the supply chain, being able to quickly and easily onboard that information, knowing that you're going to copy across all of the relevant data. I'm hugely excited about that. Finally, just a handful of configuration options that we're bringing there, but all of which are in their own way, the devil is in the detail, and they add up to amazing capability. Being able first and foremost to have variants, and where this is particularly useful is where a given type of information may, for example, have a subtype, and that will be different, whether it's a drawing, whether it's a report, whether it's a survey. Being able to pick that from a consistent list and then use that for filtering is something we're already seeing people take advantage of in our partner implementations. And also being able to create links, but within templates that are then relative to other spaces within there, allows even more flexible structures to be created prior to the users themselves actually using them, and allows that real standardization of design. Then we also have had a lot of people ask to be able to say when information is uploaded, for example, it's being uploaded and we're at a particular stage of a program, rather than have the user enter that information, it'd be able to come from the space itself, from the project itself, where that project will know it's at a particular stage, and that just comes through here. And the suggested value, as you can see here, is coming through in the Reba stage there and at the technical design in the project. Therefore, the document is immediately stamped with that. The space category, which we have had now for a number of releases, is now something which optionally is multi-select, and that's recognizing that in this project and operations and delivery world, people have different ways they want to look at this information. So being able to slice and dice that in different ways just adds to that usability of it. And ultimately, we're finding more and more that when it comes to the end users using the system, that people are wanting just to drive people to use the Quartz interface. So when it comes to system administrators who are configuring the system, our Graphite interface will be used, but more and more the end users are purely using Quartz. So that's something that we can now configure. And within Save Searches, when you run a search but there's only one result, rather than taking a user to a listing, actually we can take you straight to the document. Now, when used in conjunction with a portlet with quick links, that can be incredibly powerful to take people, for example, to the latest published single document of information. And finally, you'll notice down the left-hand side here, where we have at the moment our standardized configuration of WIP shared published, but which is organized with these numbers in front, because that ensures a common layout. The ability now to sort by a field of your choosing, so that you're not then having to put numbers in front of things and so on, but show you at the same time you can ensure that information will flow as you expect it to and presented in a standardized way. The final things, very small additions, but again important in their own way. For a long time, people have asked to be able to drag information, and whether or not it's a PDF or whether it's a DWG or whether it's a model, being able to say if the base name is the same, I can now use that and match that in terms of revising information. And also, we've had for a long time within BC the ability to both reissue and to annotate an issue, which is where I mark up before sending it to people, as part of this general trend of bringing things into the end user interface. We've now also got those capabilities. So in summary, I hope you'll agree, what we've got in 7.3 is a fantastic release, and what we've got to come after that as far as our 7.4 release is concerned is an even bigger improvement to that. So without further ado, I will now pass to my colleague who is going to pick up on what Stuart alluded to earlier, which was about this tension to do with the sharing of information between CDEs. And Paul, over to you.
Good morning. I'm Paul Horton. Today you can think of me as Paul, one of three, and I'm going to be talking to you about a new module we're about to release called BC Connect. Okay, so there's going to be 4 things I'm going to go through. I'm going to tell you what BC Connect is. I'm going to talk about why you need it, and then we'll look at what's new. Everything is the answer to that one, but it's pretty exciting stuff. And then I'll give you a quick summary of what we've just gone through. So what is BC Connect? It's an automated copy of documents between servers and spaces. It's a great way to get files, types of metadata transferred from one BC server to another. It's a great way to move information from a project to an asset, or to move information from an asset to a project, something I imagine quite a lot of you on the end of the phone need to do on a regular basis. It's accurate and it's effortless, which is very important. And the source and destination can be different. So you can map from one set of locations to another, from one set of types to another, from one set of metadata fields and values to another. And it's brought to you by the letters A to B and C, D, E. And yes, we are overly pleased with ourselves about that one. But why BC Connect? That's a very good question. Well, although we've been saying a single source of truth is really important for a very long time, there isn't really one single source of truth anymore. Everyone has a CDE. And there are lots of risks with this. So if lots of information is in a client CDE, does the supplier have access to things in the event of a claim? If lots of stuff is in a supplier CDE, does the client have access to things in the event of insolvency or ongoing access to asset information? These are real problems. And you may have seen this diagram once or twice today, but the reality is we live in a connected data ecosystem. And there are lots of challenges around data exchange with this. You've got to make sure you're fulfilling client information requirements. You might be uploading gigabytes of data daily, weekly, monthly between supplier and client CDEs. There might be different folder structures between them. You might need to make sure you're only sending the correct information across. When you copy the files, you also need the metadata, because the metadata is what makes sense of them. And you might need to translate from one set of metadata fields to another. And finally, if you're doing this all manually, you probably have to identify and correct some mistakes. So the manual process might look a little bit like this. You coordinate all the information you've got to transfer across. You download it using your internet connection. You export the metadata, and then you upload it using your internet connection, and then you set the metadata. And that all has to be done by hand with people being logged in and turning the wheel. BC Connect is hopefully the answer that makes everything look nice and rosy. So what does BC Connect do? It does a number of things. The most important thing is it publishes stuff. You find documents and you can publish them. So here, a safe search precisely defines which documents are ready to be published. What I need to do is I click Publish to Server from the Actions menu, and I'm off to the races. So I've got 4 steps to get through. Firstly, I've got to choose which destination I'm going to go to. So I can either pick from an existing one or add a new one. Here's one I prepared earlier. I'll come back to how you actually add one in a moment. I need to make sure I'm authenticated with the source and the destination. And this means that I don't have to stay logged in whilst the publishing takes place. So whether it takes a small number of minutes or whether it takes a large number of hours, I don't need to be logged in on my computer for this to work. I can then confirm that I'm using the safe search that I need to, or I can change it if I want to use a different one. And then the publish operation does a whole bunch of checks. It makes sure that everything is going to be fine when you publish the documents. And once that check is complete, you'll know if you're creating, if you're revising, or if you're fulfilling, and you know if there are any errors or warnings. Here, we've got 25 documents that are going across, no errors, no warnings, and I'm just creating them. So if I did get lots of errors, I could make corrections and then try again. But we're good to go, so let's publish. As I'm publishing, we show a screen that shows you your progress. You do not need to be logged in during the transfer. The transfer is actually taking place between the servers directly. It's not going via your computer. We're not using your internet connection. So you get the advantage of whatever server connection, whatever internet connection bandwidth our servers have, which is pretty good, I have to say. And so once all those documents are complete, you get a nice report telling you exactly what happened. If you weren't monitoring it, we'd send you an email. So basically you can fire and forget, and then you'll receive an email when everything's done, so you can update the rest of the project team to say, yep, everything's been transferred that needed to be transferred. So that's pretty simple. It's possible to review and access a detailed audit. So I can see all of the transfers I've done. And if I want to understand exactly what happened in the transfer, I can see every single document that was transferred, where it went, and whether it was revising, whether it was creating, whether it was filling placeholders. And I get links to each of them so I can go and inspect them on the actual destination. Nice and simple. Now, I talked to you about how you define a connection between your source and your destination, between the supplier and the client, or the client and the supplier. That's a 7-step process. 6 really simple things and 1 slightly more complicated thing. So I'll just race through these. Step 1, you need to make sure you're authenticated. It's pretty basic. Step 2, you need to pick your destination, your source space, where you're sending information from. That's not particularly hard. Then I need to decide where it's going to. I can either send it locally. So if I had my, if I was going from a project and wanted to push it into an AIM all on the same server, I could do that. Or I can go remotely, which is where this really takes flight. So I can choose a remote server, paste in the URL for that. I can make sure in step 4 I authenticate with that. And in step 5, I choose the destination space, the project, the asset, whatever it needs to be, I can select. So 5 really simple steps to get me started. And then I'm at the 6th step, and I'm ready to map between the folder structures, the fields, and the values in the source and destination spaces. Now, this is technically the hard part, but it's not really that hard, as you'll see. So the first thing to do is sort out my locations. So I configure my location mapping, and here I've got a really simple setup. I've just got a few collections in my source, and I've got 1 collection in my destination. But you could have whole folder structures in there, and you could perform mappings between them. So all I need to do in that case is to drag and drop those items in no mapping around and line them up against the destination. Nice and simple. Value mapping allows you to map from one set of values to another. And what's really great here is that we have an auto match values option, and that will intelligently match the values in the source to the values in the destination. It does exact matches perfectly, and it does best guess matches when they're not quite the same. So if you've got, I mean, here I've got 5 items here, but if I had 105, 1005, that auto match values would save me a truckload of time. And once I click that button, you can see everything gets slotted in. If I need to refine it, then I can do. Once everything's mapped, so here I've got my locations mapped, I've mapped all the fields, the type goes to type, classification to classification, and I've mapped all the values from any of the drop downs or taxonomies. I can click on next, and all I need to do now is give it a name so I can recognize it when I want to reuse it. So if your source and destination closely match, setting up one of these connectors is a small number of minutes. It's really simple. So just to summarize, clients and suppliers have CDEs, and you need to move large numbers of documents between them. BC Connect enables those to be done, that to be done quickly, very importantly, accurately, with not much effort, but it also supports going from sources and destinations with different configurations, and that's one of the key areas of where time is saved. Ultimately, this is supporting transfer of files from BC to BC, and it's not using your internet connection, so that's another big time saver as well. As far as release goes, it's in preview with early adopters now. and we're looking to release in early 2020. So that's the new BC Connect module, and I'm now going to hand over to Paul Rose, who'll be speaking about professional services team. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. So I'm Paul too for today. I'm Paul Rose. I work in the professional services team, and give you a bit of an overview around what the professional services team do, how we're here to help you gain success. We're going to talk a little bit about our service catalogues that's available to you guys and how to access us. Professional services team are based around the UK, and we're led by Matthew Pell. He is a expert in construction information management. He has been with BC for a very long time and worked on a large number of our larger CDEs. Lorraine Walsh is experienced BA. She works across a wide range of projects, working with Heathrow at this moment in time. Lisa Clements is our project coordinator. She's here to make sure that everyone in the team is delivering on time and make sure we're getting the most out of our team. Bridget Collins works as our lead trainer. She's the main point of contact for all training. She will be available to make sure your staff are up to speed and can cover off all different elements within the system. Greg Dixie is a new member of our team. He's formerly a BIM manager and has been working on our BC projects solution with the product team, and also is working with us to deliver new projects at this moment in time. Simon Price has been with GroupBC for a very long time, has a strong background in construction information management, as also has Mark Biscoe, who has joined us this year as well, and has worked on some of our larger projects. Pauline Dickinson is a implementation consultant who has a background in oil and gas. She used to be a customer of ours and really focuses on some of our sort of newer projects, but also on adoption. She's the sort of person we place within businesses to help people adopt and use the system. And finally, there's me. I'm a BA and / lead consultant for GroupBC. I used to be a customer historically, and I'm here to basically understand people's requirements and deliver complex solutions as simply as possible. What we really focus on is to successful deliveries, and successful deliveries have a number of different aspects. We want to talk about making sure that we have a methodology that we can use to deliver, in Steve's words, delight to our customers. We want to make sure that it's a tangible delivery as well, that it's giving you what you want to have, not only the things that you require it to do, but also those value adds that we can add as part of the process. So our consultants are here to make sure that you get that experience, whether that's through a 3-week engagement to set up a very simple project or a 6-month engagement to do a more complicated system. We're here to make that process as easy as possible for you. We really focus on our customer success. Ultimately, we want to make sure that you get what you want from the system, that it delivers what you need as quickly as possible. We also want to help support your business change process. Implementing a new CD or implementing new functionality or even upgrading between different versions of BC is a business change, and we want to help that process be as smooth as possible for you so that you can gain maximum value out of the system. And we really focus on the outcomes, tangible outcomes for you. So you can demonstrate that you have received something from us, and that's how we measure our own success. This year, we've been working on a service catalogue. So those of you who are from a more IT background, service catalogues are around the services IT providers can give to you. And we are going through our services as a business and looking at how we can classify each one of those services and really make sure we've got outcomes for each one of them, so you can understand what it is you are going to get when you sign up for those services. These services will be available through potentially via your account managers, and effectively it's almost like a shopping list of services. So for example, when we're working on upgrades, you may want some training, you may want some consultancy to utilize the new functionality within the system, you may want some refreshing courses to remember how you do certain elements of the system, you may have some new requirements that you want some business analysis on. We have services to provide and support you through that, and that can be a single service or it can be a blending of those services together. If we're looking at a BC projects implementation, we'll do training, consultancy, and configuration. One of the new services we're exciting in this year we're looking at is around BIM consultancy. We have a ex-BIM manager in our team, and they can help guide those processes, as that's something that we're encountering a lot in this particular industry. We're also looking at how we can continually improve our services. One thing is to define those services, but also look at how we can constantly improve those services and help with the delivery and make those deliveries better. So we're looking at how we work. Are we able to produce better templates, better guidance, get better presentations, or better skill sets from our consultants? Or how we actually deliver those services. Is there a new feature in BC that we can utilize to improve the delivery, to speed up the process, to make management of the system easier? We're always looking to improve those processes as we move forward. We're also looking at opportunities where we can offer new services, new things that we don't do today. We engage with clients on a regular basis, and we're always being asked, well, could you do this or could you do that? And to that end, we're starting to look at new services. So in 2020, we'll be looking at the following. One of the things we're going to be looking at is e-learning. Currently, we predominantly focus on class-based training. We do a small amount of online training in specific scenarios, but we are now looking at delivering online training, starting off with base routes functionality, so being able to log in, add documents, search for documents, but then expanding that out and utilizing it throughout our delivery process, which we're excited to be moving forward with. And also we're going to be looking at accreditation. Formerly, this idea was to look at partner accreditation. So Stuart referenced the partners we're working with, but we will also be now looking at accrediting other users as well. So people can professionally work on their professional development using tools within BC. So we'll be looking at certifying users around configuration and administration within the system. So that won't just be available to partners, but it will be available to all of our customers. So if you're interested in working in professional services, we're not just here to start the delivery. We are actually here throughout the life cycle of you with BC, whether that's you would like health checks, you would like training, whether you would just like someone to come in and help increase your adoption. We are here throughout that life cycle, and we can be accessed via your account manager. So we look forward to working with you, and I'll hand over to Paul Gray.
Good morning, everybody. The third Paul. I'm here representing the sales team, the account management team, and what I'll be talking about is introducing the team. Slightly too. Sorry, can't drive the PC. There we go. That's better. I'll be talking to you to introduce the team to you, the team members. Describing the services that we offer, which complement the things that you've heard about this morning already. And lastly, since the major focus has been on the availability of the new release of Business Collaborator, I'll be talking about the process of requesting an upgrade. So the team. Stuart Bell heads the sales and marketing team as our director. So obviously the focus this morning is on the account management functionality. And Sanjeev Shah, one of our other directors, is in charge of partner strategy, our relationship with the partners that you've heard about. Sanj also works with our overseas clients. So if there are any of our overseas clients joining this morning, Sanj is your main contact. Myself, key account manager, looking after some of our longer standing customers and working alongside Rick, who particularly focuses on owner-operators, universities, Heathrow, those sort of customers. Chris looks after a range of accounts, some of our contractor customers, as well as our longest-standing customer, Nationwide Building Society, who, as alluded to earlier, has recently refreshed their use of BC. Finally, the newest member of the team, Matt, joined us earlier this year to work alongside us to help us in the role of pre-sales, to help with drawing up estimates, plans of work, that type of activity. And you'll often see Matt working alongside us to help in the services that we need to provide to you. So services we offer to you. We will engage with you, our customers, to make sure you can access everything you need. And particularly relevant are the things you've heard about this morning. If you want to access anything from that service catalogue that Paul number 2 talked about, Paul Rose, then yeah, we're the people that you need to open that conversation with. And when the time is right, if you want to start exploring the new services that Paul was talking about adding next year, again, come and talk to us and we will facilitate that process. Other things we can do, if you want to buy one of the additional modules, if you want to extend the capability of your BC installation, perhaps with a process plan or BIMWorks or the GeoLink capability that Steve was particularly focusing on. Again, we are the people that you should be talking to. Simply increasing the spread of the use of BC within your application, adding additional users to the system, but as well, particularly the focus of this morning, if you want access to the new exciting versions of BC, we will be engaging with you over the next days and weeks to talk to you about upgrading your system. So how do you go about requesting an upgrade? First of all, I have to say it's been great to have some of our customers' supply chain joining with us. And so upgrades actually need to be requested by the licensee, and your account manager will be contacting you. If you want to go ahead with the upgrade, we will log your request with our project management office to make sure everything is scheduled correctly and the right resources. We'll discuss the options and commercials with you. For example, are you able to upgrade during office hours rather than at a weekend? That would mean that we would be able to upgrade you much quicker. If you don't know who your account manager is, then contact me. My details are on the slide at the end of my presentation. Contact me and I'll pass your request on to make sure that we can deal with your request properly. If you're not a licensee, if you're part of the supply chain, then we'd be very happy to talk to you about you acquiring your own version of Business Collaborator to work alongside the people whose project you're working on. Just to talk a little bit about the process of an upgrade, the PMO will schedule the request and then we'll arrange a kickoff meeting. Here we'll be discussing with you the project plan, we'll agree the roles and responsibilities, who needs to work from your side and the roles that we need them to fulfill, who will be working with you from the professional services and technical services team. We will also work with you, the professional services team, particularly reviewing the new features that will become available to you. Some of our clients may be a couple of releases behind, and there's a lot of new features that will be available to you that we need to talk to you about to decide how best to implement. And usually we will do a technical upgrade first. That's putting the new version of Business Collaborator in, working as closely as possible to the way you use BC at the moment. We will obviously replace or remove bespoke developments that are no longer needed, but then we will work with you to deploy the new features. Again, professional services providing the training or the configuration support to work with you to make sure you get the best of the new versions of BC. Those of you that haven't been through an upgrade might be interested to know what actually happens. First thing is we create a beta server or a test server. We run a test to make sure we've got accurate timings, so that if we are doing this out of hours at the weekend, you're not hanging around waiting for us to give you a call. You'll know roughly when we're going to be ringing you because we've provided you with fairly accurate timings. We'll let you check out your instance on that test server to make sure the configurations and everything are working as you would expect. And our professional services team can help you with putting your communications together that you will need to send to your users to explain what's going to happen. And perhaps most importantly, they will work with you to plan any post-upgrade deployments of the new features, because that's particularly where professional services can help you get the best value out of the new capabilities that BC can offer. Final stage, we actually carry out the upgrade. Remarkably, in almost every case, that just happens very, very smoothly. We can do it in or out of hours as agreed with you. And if it's done at a weekend, your users will wake up on a Monday morning to have access to the new version of BC. So here are my contact details. If you don't know who your account manager is, get in touch with me and I'll make sure your request is dealt with. But we in the account management team will be getting in touch with you over the next days and weeks to discuss working on an upgrade with you. So I don't know if I will hand back to Stuart at this point, who's going to deal with any questions. Thank you very much for attending this morning and for listening to everything we've had to say.
Thank you, Paul, Paul and Steve. A hat trick of Pauls. So thank you very much indeed for your participation as well. I need to encourage, there's some modesty around the typing of questions this morning, but we've had a couple very specifically in relation to Connect, one of which related to commercials. We're finalising the commercials as part of the early adopter program that we're working with a couple of main contractors and one client organisation on. We want to ensure that from a charge model, it's very equitable and it reflects the value in terms of time saving, efficiency and effectiveness that it's delivering. And again, at the point of contact with your account team over the next couple of weeks, we'll be resolving those. A further question specifically on BC Connect. Are there any thoughts to connect BC with other third-party applications? So absolutely, when we conceived the idea of Connect, the product team did a fantastic job in analysis. We're acutely aware of the variety of different systems, including other CDEs, or why people would use other CDEs from other vendors, I don't know, but evidently they do. Where we've got participation from other vendors, then we've conceived the framework of BC Connect to be able to support other systems. We just have to effectively do the design and development work to deliver those. We are speaking to a couple of clients currently around a couple of offerings from a couple of large US vendors that are used on the design side of the industry, and traditionally or historically have been a bottleneck in that productivity flow. There aren't any other questions that have come in online, so that just saves me to thank very much the marketing team for facilitating the session, to Stephen, Paul for your input as well. Today's webinar has been recorded, so the marketing team will be getting in contact over the next week, pointing you and your colleagues to that recording. Again, if you've got any questions subsequently, you'll see Paul Gray's contact details toward the end of that webinar and slide deck that we've got. Please feel free to inundate him with lots of very hard questions. So thank you all very, very much indeed. We look forward to seeing you all again soon. Thank you.